So today's title is called Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones. So our big idea is this. Like the women who went to the tomb to care for Jesus' body, we all have obstacles between us and Jesus that we can't move on our own. But the power of God that raised Jesus to life also rolled the tombstone door away and is ready to do the same for you. So let's look at Mark chapter 16, verse 1 through 8 this morning. It was Saturday evening when the Sabbath ended. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome went out and purchased burial spices so they could anoint Jesus' body. Very early on Sunday morning, just at sunrise, they went to the tomb. On the way, they were asking each other, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" But as they arrived, they looked up and saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled aside. When they entered the tomb, they saw a young man clothed in white robes sitting on the right side. And we know from the other accounts this was most likely an angel. The women were shocked, but the angel said, "Don't be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He isn't here. He is risen from the dead. Look, this is where they laid his body. Now go and tell his disciples, including Peter, that Jesus is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there just as he told you before he died." Then the women fled from the tomb, trembling and bewildered, and they said nothing to anyone because they were too frightened. Now, depending on what translation you have, the earliest manuscripts of Mark, this is fun little biblical trivia, actually ends at verse 8. So the oldest manuscripts we have end at verse 8, and so it was later manuscripts, they believe that scribes wrote in verses 9 through 20, taking from perhaps Matthew and John as well. But I want us to focus this morning on this little detail shared in this account. And as we know, the women then go and they tell Peter, and it was very important that they go tell Peter because Peter had just denied Jesus, and he was probably thinking, great, and he was away from the others ashamed. And so we find that these ladies did go and tell Peter. But I want us to look at this in verse 3. They're walking along the road, and they say to each other, "Who will roll away the stone for us?" Who will roll the stone away for us? And first, why were they going to the tomb? So Jesus died on Friday, Good Friday, and so the Sabbath of Saturday. So from the sunset on that Friday till the sunset on Saturday, you weren't supposed to do any work at all. It was forbidden. And so you would quickly put a body in the tomb if you needed to, and then you would come back the day after and prepare and go through the wasn't an embalming, but the preservative process that they would do with the spices. So these ladies had burial spices that would help reduce the stench and the decay over time, and it was a way of showing love and devotion to Christ. Even in his death, these women were so committed that they were going to love and to care for his dead body, even while everyone else was too afraid. Now think about this. This would have been a little risky. So Peter has denied him, that he was crucified. We know from the other accounts there would have been a group of Roman guards, probably at least 4, which would have been at least 4 of them needed to roll the stone. It was probably sealed in clay, had a Roman scroll on it saying, "Do not enter." And so not only were they risking being arrested by the Romans by being identified with Christ, they risk all these other things as well. Only the closest of family and friends who would dare to care for someone's body like this. There would be no denying their devotion to Jesus through this act. So as I said, this large tomb would have been not only too heavy for these women to move, it was most likely sealed into the rock with clay that was already hardening. It would have required several strong grown men to open and move it. Which is why they were discussing along the way, who will roll away the stone for us? Who can we ask? They had a large, and for them, an immovable barrier between them and their devotion to Jesus. Maybe other people could have moved it, But for them, this was an immovable stone that would be in between, getting in the way of them loving and serving Christ the way their hearts desired. How often do we feel we have barriers that we aren't strong enough to roll out of the way, that are between the way we want to serve Jesus? We see other people loving and serving Christ, and we think, man, they must be super Christians. Man, they must be, I wish I could do that. I wish I had the strength to move away the barriers that are in front of me. Objects that seem to make it impossible for us to love and serve Jesus the way our hearts desire. Stones of sin, stones of brokenness, stones of fear or doubt. How many of you just had that large stone of doubt and fear in front of you, and you're like, I want to do this, Lord. I want to serve you. I want to share you with other people. I want to step out in faith and begin to practice generosity, Lord. I want to step out in faith and begin to serve in different ministries. But God, I'm too afraid, Lord. I don't think, there's no way you actually want to use me. And there's that immovable stones that stand in front of us. Lord, there's no way, you know my past, Lord, there's no way anyone could ever be, I could be trusted, Lord, I can't move this stone. So I want us to ask this morning, what stones are in our life that we feel we can't move? What stones in our lives or leave us saying, how or who can I get to help move it away? How many of you feel like, and that's a good place to be. I tell you, if you're at a place where you realize you can't move the stones between you and Jesus in your life, that's a good place to be. There's a lot of lives wasted trying to move those stones in their own power. When we try to fix ourselves, when we try to move these things ourselves, we waste so much time. We're pushing and pushing, and they don't move. And then what? We feel like, I'm a failure. I'm too alone to move it. I don't have enough faith. All these lies from the enemy start coming in. What stones in our life are too heavy and cemented within our life for us to feel it will ever be moved? For some of us, those stones that have gotten in the way between us and Jesus in our life, we've had so much water go under the bridge. We've had so many years of living in hurt, so many years of brokenness, so many years of failure that we feel those stones are permanently cemented and they're not ever going to move. And now in our head we feel like, yeah, Jesus loves me, yeah, all this, but he feels so distant. I want to encourage us this morning that we don't have to feel hopeless because we are not helpless. We don't have to feel hopeless because we are not helpless. See, the women thought that they're like, we're helpless right now. Who are we going to get to ask? What they didn't realize was that they were not helpless, that the power of God that resurrected Christ was the same power that would already roll the stone away. When the women arrived, the stone was already moved. Imagine if they're walking on that road and they were like, oh, forgot the stone, the soldiers. We tried. And they go back. The women that went, they were the ones who got to experience Christ's resurrection. They were the first ones to know. They were the ones that ran back and told all the other disciples, and the disciples like, you're crazy, you're just woo. What would happen in our life is that we're on our journey towards Christ and we just gave up and said, there's no way I can move these barriers. There's no way. There's no way I'll ever be healed of this. There's no way I'll ever find true love, all these lies and questions that rattle around in our mind. And what if we decided, yeah, I'm helpless. Because I'm helpless, I'm hopeless, and they turned back. But I love that I don't know what they were planning. Were they going to ask the Roman soldiers to move it? Like maybe they break some amazing muffins or something, and they're going to bribe them, hey, can you just let us get in there? Like there was some boldness with these ladies. They didn't know how the stones were going to get moved. And even while they were going, they were like, well, still trying to figure it out. But there was this determination that they were going to go and they were going to love and they were going to serve Jesus even in his death. And I want that to be a picture for us. We get to see that Jesus is alive. And we get to love and serve and care for him in his life. But there are things that are wanting to stand in the way of us pursuing and living out everything that he is calling us to. And I want to encourage us this morning that the same power that raised Jesus from the dead, that rolled the stone, is the same power that raises even us to new life in Jesus. If God, who created this universe, if God being that energy source, that one, that all-powerful, that birthed this universe, that was within Christ, that reanimated him back to life, even made more perfect, how much more so can he even do it within us? I believe if, like these women, we just move forward in obedience, we are going to find that Jesus has already rolled these stones out of the way. He's already rolled these stones out of the way, these obstacles. He's not asking us to do the work. He's not asking us to roll away the barriers between us and him. He's already done it. The things in our life that have kept us from God, he's already rolled those things away. All we have to do is not turn back, but continue walking forward towards him. And we may have things in our life, and we may see that stone ahead, but I guarantee you, you keep walking forward towards Christ. Keep walking in obedience to what and where he is calling you to go and to do, and he will move those obstacles as we get there. There is nothing God can't forgive. There is nothing he can't move. There is nothing he can't heal. There is nothing he can't restore. There is no one he can't use. The power of God that raised Jesus to life also rolled the tombstone's doorway. And he is ready to do the same for us. Let's just take a moment. If the worship team would join me. So this is a simple message this morning. But I believe it's a message that God is wanting to do, because I believe there's those of us, it's so easy for many of us. How many of you felt like you've got some big stones, some big barriers between you and what God wants you to do in your life? Some of us may feel we're on the other side of the tomb. We may feel we're the ones in the grave, dead, gone. And maybe we came back to life, but we haven't come out of the tomb yet. We feel like maybe God raised us to life, but we're stuck in our situation. We're stuck in that tomb door hasn't been broken off and moved yet. And we feel like we're trapped and we're banging, saying, is there anyone there? And I let you know, if God has raised you to life, he has not abandoned you. He will not abandon you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. We see a picture of that even on the cross as Jesus hung there when he said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" He was quoting Psalm 22. And if you know that psalm and what he was doing, and anyone that know it, is if you read all to the end, it's David feeling this aloneness, feeling that God has left him, but then in the end he realizes God has never left him and God never will. And we see this promise that Jesus would come and that he would never leave us or forsake us. So don't think for one moment, because there are some stones in the road between you and Jesus, don't think for one moment that that doesn't mean God doesn't see you, that he doesn't hear you, that he is not with you. Don't let that think that, oh, there's a stone, there's something way, okay, I guess God doesn't want me to serve him. I guess God doesn't want me to be a part of his plan. May we walk forward in obedience and allow God to be God. Move the stones out of our way.